Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Minds interviews. This should be the fourth session, I believe. Today we are here with Callum. Hi, Callum. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Thank you so much for being a part of this interview.
Mm.
So today we're going to be talking kind of about powerlifting and mental health and kind of all different aspects. And Callum's kind of the man for talking about that kind of stuff. So I'll let you introduce yourself. Can you just kind of give us a brief outline of, the kind of stuff you do and
Okay,
etc.?
brief outline. So I've been powerlifting for about 7 years. Well, powerlifting and coaching within that realm. So I got into powerlifting when I was about 20, 27 now. I've been coaching for quite a long time. So I coach full-time, all online as my main job. I competed to a relatively high level at internationals and so on. And now I run my brand and just, like, as I say, just coaching full-time, working with a lot of athletes all around the country. And then I have my own history, and the reason that part of the story tends to gather more traction and interest is because I, in my early days, suffered with anorexia, bulimia. I suffered with depression. I kind of ticked every box. I kind of went through a bit of everything. So yeah, and that all was redeemed through the world of powerlifting.
Yeah, well, me and Kat, I think our kind of history with mental illnesses and kind of moving towards weightlifting, I didn't compete, but I kind of resonate similarly with what your kind of backstory is like. So I'm going to kind of kick off with the first set kind of question. Yeah, I'll go with the question. So powerlifting, I get a lot of, or often when I speak to someone who isn't in the world of weightlifting or powerlifting or gym, I feel like people often tend to assume that mental health stories and disordered eating, etc., is kind of just isn't a thing in the weightlifting world or in the powerlifting world, because we're all kind of, these big meatheads and we don't give a shit. We don't have feelings. We just want to lift heavy things and no one gives a shit about that. What are your opinions on that?
Absolute nonsense. I appreciation for the sport. Vice is quite the opposite. I see it as a home for the people like that. But general weightlifting and powerlifting and training, you see a prevalence of all these things. These are people who most frequently you'll come across someone who has some form of experience of mental health. Now that doesn't, I think that terminology, someone assumes the extreme. But if you get into training and you get introduced to the gym, most often you come across images of what you should look like, how you should perform, what you should do with your body, what your body should look like to the outside world. And I think everyone in anything fitness related has come across that. But often, more often than not, anyone who comes into fitness, there's that sort of psychological relationship right at the start. So if you came to the gym, very often, and don't get me wrong, it's not always the case, and to those who's not, it's fantastic, but it's very often the case that someone comes to the gym in relation to some of those things. They didn't like how they looked, so they exercised, or there were pressures to be part of a certain thing, so they exercised, or how many times have we been told that exercise is fantastic for your mental health as a whole? So there are a lot of people who come into the world of fitness through that. And then most often, once you're into the world of going to the gym, you become aware of these different avenues you can take. You probably become aware of strength training specifically, or general world of fitness training, or towards CrossFit, that sort of thing. So I think it's rare that someone hasn't come across it, or they are unaware of anything mental health related for themselves and then ended up in one of these sports. I don't think that happens very frequently.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the gym is kind of the breeding ground for comparisons. That 9 times out of 10, the entire area is filled with mirrors, and you are surrounded by people who spend their lives training. Some of them, there's always going to be someone stronger than you, or bigger than you, or leaner than you, and it's very easy to find faults in yourself comparatively to other people.
There's always a comparison, like almost anyone. If you say, okay, so what's the goal? It will be a goal in comparison to a person or a thing. It's never, I want to I want to look good. It's, I would like to look like, or it's, okay, well, what's your strength goals? I'm like, oh, I'd like to be as strong as. And there's always that comparison. Whether or not that they see that as a negative, that comparison is always there. And very rarely it's not. And usually the people who aren't comparing are literally the best ones. And they're like, I don't want to be as strong as, I'm the strongest person.
Yeah, yeah, and I suppose that's where the issue comes in, isn't it? Is that we set goals based off of like positives that we see in other people. So we see a thing where someone's thriving or someone is enjoying their life because, or at least we associate it's because of the way they look or how strong they are. So we strive for that.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with creating or seeing something and being aware that that's the direction you'd like to go. But more often than not, and this is within the world of coaching as well, we try to direct people towards what are the things they'd like to improve for themselves, as well as, but not looking at themselves as a negative. Just because you're not the thing yet doesn't mean you're not a positive. But it's trying to find a non-comparative thing to work towards. It's I just want to improve the thing I do, not I want to be as good as someone.
Yeah, I think I'll ask you to delve into the way that you would maybe kind of generally deal with a client who is struggling with something like that. I know obviously you're not kind of a psychological professional, but I'm just interested in general. But yeah, I think it's about separating, because like you were saying earlier, often the reason you set your goal is because you see that there's a positive in someone else, or you see something external that you want to achieve. And usually it's that initial comparison of my life currently is obsolete or is incorrect compared to this life that I want to pursue. And I think it's about separating that is a goal and that's okay. But your current situation isn't incorrect or wrong because it isn't that goal yet. So you're never going to be at your goal, otherwise it wouldn't be a goal in the first place.
Yeah, I think it's just trying to make sure that someone's aware that just because you're trying to add something to your life doesn't mean that you were missing something. It's just that you were trying to add something new. And it can be a hard thing for people to take in, because most of our lives we're not taught that way. We're taught that we have to build on what we are because we're not enough. And there's the frequent thing of people saying, well, what do you want to be when you're older? As if there's something wrong with what you are now, but always trying to accept that there's room to grow, but not that you are incomplete because you've not got there yet.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just how society is built now, isn't it? We, with nutrition products and things, people want to promote the idea that you are not enough, so you need to buy my product. And that's where the fitness button.
It's very marketable to talk that way. So it always sells, because you tell someone they're lacking something and you can play on self-esteem and you can sell that to people.
Yeah. Fear, it's like fear and it's like fear and anger are the two like most marketable emotions, because if you can get someone angry about something, or if you can get someone scared, then you can get them to do what you want, basically. And as horrible as it is, that's what a lot of things work off of. What was that? Sorry.
I always thought the same, like that was the same sort of thing we came across in marketing. I talked to marketing people, but I realized that if you're just positive, people are also very attracted to the safety of positivity and actually liking the idea of growing themselves. Hence we're having this chat.
Yeah, exactly. And that's part of the reason why I set up My Minds, was because I think that positivity is needed in this area, like in the fitness world in particular. There's so much kind of thriving on negativity that positivity is needed to be kind of injected into people's news feeds and just kind of it's a daily part of their life. So moving on, you mentioned about your kind of coaching philosophy with kind of issues of comparison or mental health. Just in a general kind of way, can you explain how you go about that, or just kind of
As you said, it's a general thing, because obviously it's massively subjective what people are aiming for, and most frequently it's trying to make sure that you are keeping them accountable to the level that they want to attain. And there's a fine line, because obviously we work with some very elite guys, and we work to people who are introducing beginners in the sport, and it's making sure that they have realistic expectations of themselves. So if we're talking to a beginner, it's like, I don't expect perfect from you. I'm expecting progress, and I want you just to work on the things we're given, but then we're not looking at comparison to anyone else because you're so new. And it's trying to keep them grounded in who they are and what they're actually trying to achieve. Now, if you're someone very, very elite, then the conversation changes a little, because there is going to be an awareness of competition. But most frequently, I like to have the person focus on how far they could possibly go, as opposed to how far someone else has gone, and measuring by that. Almost always, just because that also tends to lead them to make more progress. When you have people at the forefront of the sport and they are capable of things that other people aren't capable of, they're so busy comparing to other people, they're capping themselves or limiting themselves or seeing themselves as behind, and it becomes very difficult to train. But most often, what we're trying to achieve is like have them focus on goals in relation to where they are, in relation to where they could be in the short term, the long term, what things they want to improve on. But it's never that who they are is bad. It's, we'll just make a small change and that's fantastic. If it's a whole cycle of training and we fix one thing, phenomenal. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm pleasantly positive. Like it's always about being just positive in the direction of, yeah, there's something wrong here and we can work towards better. But that's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with, like I'm 7 years into this and I am still bad at some things and I have no issue. And if I do something wrong for a whole cycle, I'm like, awesome, there's things to work on next time. And for a lot of the guys we work with, we don't work with people who are like, I'm just going to dabble and then leave. It tends to be people like, okay, this matters to me. I'm like, okay, we have years to work with. There's no rush. There's no hurry. I don't care what anyone else is doing. You're the first you to come to me. Let's work with what you could be, where you're going, and what you want to do. And it's nice. It's nice to have those really long-term goals and be like, okay, well, in 6 years, I want to be #1 in the world. I'm like, cool. That's 6 years away. So let's work on what we're going to do for a month. And we'll work on, okay, well, at the end of this cycle, what could we achieve? And often as well, I don't like just focusing on numbers. I'm not going to pretend for a second that my guys don't make very good progress. I'm very proud that they do. And they make big leaps in progress a lot of the time, especially beginners, obviously. But most frequently, I'll say, right, here's the start of the cycle. By the end of this, I want you to understand your squat. And that's it. I don't really care if you can compare to someone else and you're better, or if your comp squat now is ridiculously easy. I don't care. Because you're going to get there and you're always going to improve. But if you walk away from this and go, I understood this better, I feel better about how I do this, I have an awareness, you're becoming a better athlete. And the numbers fall past that. And I think that's the sort of thing that takes away from comparison, because no one else does what you do, no one else squats how you squat, no one else does it for you. You're like, and it's just giving them the empowerment to focus on what they're doing. To realize how much detail I gave to that answer, but in basic, we try to give them relevant goals to who they are and what they're doing, as opposed to getting carried away with far too far down the line. The only things that'll impact it are the short term.
Yeah. Well, no, I like that. Please do go into detail, because that's what this is about. I want to understand kind of, you know, your philosophies on these things. It's interesting you say it's almost like, because obviously goal setting is very useful in all sports, and I think powerlifting and the way training works, especially with the kind of rise of periodization, you know, it's always been a thing, but I think it's even more of a thing in kind of even the like less elite lifters now. Like everyone seems to be doing periodization of some form, which is great because it's optimal, as you know. It's almost the idea that your goals need to be internal rather than external, and I think people often ignore when you say that you don't want an external goal, because like we were saying, you don't want to be comparing yourself to an influencer, or, you know, you can't compare yourself to like Eddie Hall when it's your first year of training, because you're always going to feel obsolete. But it's also very important to make your small term goals or short term goals internal as well, like you're saying, understanding your squat, and it being about you rather than it being you achieving something other than you.
If you take, so as a good example, I'm competing in about 5-6 months, and that comp is 5 or 6 months away. And if my goal right now is to win, that is irrelevant for 5 or 6 months until that day. So as nice as that goal is, it's irrelevant right now. So, okay, well, what's the goal of this cycle? Accumulate a bit more volume and know my squat inside and out. That's a pretty good goal. And I can focus on that. I can focus on it. I don't care if it's, well, I've got a triple and he's got a triple and he's hit it heavier. There is nothing I can do about that. In the same way that if you go to competition, your goal is to win, you don't have that much control over that factor. If they turn up and they're significantly stronger, it doesn't matter. My goal is to have the best performance I can have. My goal is to focus on each block of my cycle for me, for what I do, because my comparison does not change anything. I have no power over what that guy's doing in training. I only have power over what I do every session, every day. And I'm a very heavy routine guy. I'm about like, okay, well, everything's going to be consistent. I want to look after the variables I can. I'm going to try, and people know me, I'm going to try to look after myself. I'm not very good at it, but we're trying. And in sessions, it's going to be a similar sort of thing. Like it's going to be, okay, well, warm up properly, look after yourself properly, feel good when I lift. That's important. Have a good, like, I know how to change on this day. I know how to adapt. I know how to make corrections. I want to make sure it looks consistent. Like they're all goals for me that literally impacts no one else in the world. And I have no one to grade that by. And I think that helps me a lot.
Right. No, I think that's kind of an important message to people who are powerlifters here, because you're obviously a very successful powerlifter, even if you are being humble at the start. But I also want to talk about, for people who haven't got into powerlifting or into weightlifting, who might be struggling with mental health issues and are thinking about getting into it because they've heard about the benefits of exercise. What advice would you give to someone who is listening, who's having a bit of mental health issues and wants to get into weightlifting, powerlifting?
Do it. Like just start. Like so the biggest thing, I think 9 times out of 10, someone's like, oh, but I don't know. Like, what if I don't do this, or do I have to? Just do it. Like, just turn up and give it a shot. You literally lose nothing. The best thing about, I'll talk on behalf of powerlifting. I'm very familiar with weightlifting, but I'll talk about powerlifting is I'm an extreme pace. Like powerlifting helped me find character, helped me figure out who I was. It justified food when I literally didn't eat and when I was bulimic. Like for me, and people, like, it seems like a really excessive statement, but powerlifting literally saved my life. I would not be here had I not found this sport. And I've got nothing wrong about saying that. I know it's very extreme, but for the individual, the empowerment of going, I'm going to work towards X. I'm quantifiably going to get better. I don't have to judge how my body looks. My body performs, and I can appreciate what it is capable of. Am I allowed to swear on this?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a fucking beautiful thing. To walk away and be like, this is what my body did for me. Like, it becomes, after years of being inside the gym and being like, okay, what can I do to my body? What can I make my body do? It's like, no, this is what it can do. And the appreciation for like, well, I've spent 27 years in this body, and I'm like, for the last year, I'm like, it's all right. I quite like it. It works hard. That's brilliant. It took 27 years until I found something where I was like, well, here's the thing that my body does, and I can appreciate the outcome because it's capable. And when we spend so long like detriment and being told what it should be and shouldn't do, that's a lovely thing. Anyway, I could talk about that all day. But then you have quantifiable outcomes. You have measurements of I'm improving, and you can fuel your body and see the outcome. And you don't have to be like, okay, well, I can take from my body and it could look better. I'm like, actually, no, you're allowed to put into your body and you can be stronger. And even that relationship is a lovely thing, because that's something I never had. All I ever had was a relationship of take more away, the body is better to everyone else. And when I found powerlifting, I found put more into it, it does better things, it feels better, I actually look better too. And that was a fantastic thing as well. And then I'm also aggressively into the community principle of powerlifting. It is an individual sport as well as a community. That's very fortunate, which means that not only do you learn to appreciate yourself and to be independent, but you also get to share it with like-minded people who will support you. It is something that we hammer into our team. It's actually one of like the guideline principle rules that if you're part of our team, you support the damn team. And like, I don't care if that means you just like a post, that's fantastic, because you now have people around you who appreciate your working. And I don't care if you turn up and you squat 80 kilos and I squat 260. I care that you came there to work and try and be better. And I don't think there's anything, like, as much as I love sport as a whole, and I love rugby, I love weightlifting, I love so many sports, powerlifting to me is the epitome of it, because it's so individual and there is such a community and everyone is doing the same damn thing. We all work towards similar goals. They just are more subjective on the scale.
I think one of the great things about the gym and powerlifting and weightlifting is that we were talking about how important it is to have an internal goal, and your kind of the increase in weights can be so internal, because it's very easy to quantify your success like currently. So you hit 80 kilos, so if you do 81, that is like there's objectively more. Whereas in like football or rugby, it's hard to quantify that, because you can't say if you did a sidestep better or you passed a little bit. Whereas in powerlifting, it gives you that exact thing.
exactly. And you can try, if you're in another sport, you might quantify and try and be like, okay, tackles made and so on. But if you have a good performance, it's kind of hard to grade. And if you take something like bodybuilding, like when I was initially focused on just how I looked, I'm like, okay, today I might look 0.03% better. That's not very motivating. But today I went to the gym and my squat looked better. I squatted actually I did today literally squat a PB for volume, and that makes me feel good. Like I feel fantastic off the back of that. And some days it's not a PB. Some days it's just I just worked and I did something that I've never done before. I just did it a little bit better. And it's just that's more quantifiable. That's a really nice thing to have behind you to help support it.
Yeah, for me, as on a personal note, my thing was always bodybuilding and wanting to look a certain way, and the difficulty with that as well is, and I suppose it is kind of similar with strength stuff, but it's easier to understand why with strength stuff. But every day your body will look different. You can be like 2% body fat, like absolutely ripped, and some days you're going to be bloated and you're not going to look that great, and it's going to be nothing to do with what you did. And there is obviously to a point that with powerlifting, but you tend to understand it like, oh, I didn't eat as much here, or you can figure it out. But sometimes your body just, if your goal is the way you look, there's so many tangibles that can mess it up and make you feel like you messed up when you didn't.
Exactly. And if you talk to people who compete in bodybuilding, so you go on show day and it's okay, who decides who looks better? 3 people decide, sorry, it depends on the judging panel, but people decide what they like, and then if you look good, and that's not quantifiable, that's so subjective, and years of working. But if I show up on comp day and I worked hard and I hit a number, I hit that damn number. You don't get to decide. Like if I hit it to the standard, it's hit, and that's the end of it. And I have a real love for that. I like a bit of black and white and simplistic, and it's my success, and people can't grade that for me. I mean, placing obviously exist, but if I total 600 and something, I total 600 and something. You don't get to tell me whether or not I did. It happened.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like I love kind of old weightlifting stuff. Like I watch bodybuilding quite a lot, and I watch powerlifting and weightlifting and stuff. And I do like bodybuilding. I just think I think it's becoming more aware now, because there's been some of these like horrible stories of bodybuilders kind of committing suicide and stuff, especially recently. But I just think there needs to be that awareness of the fact that you need at least people who do take part in bodybuilding or just take part in lifting for a physique goal need to just be aware of separating that out and just understanding that it's not your worth. Like I know it's very hard because I've been there and I got lost in it, but it really isn't your worth.
Right, completely. And I think I'd say the one thing I would really suggest to people, and again, this might just be my opinion, but when people come into the gym and get into it a bit, and the first thing so often is like, oh, okay, well, you just got some fitness, go to a show. I think that one's a bit more damaging. Like what you do is you take someone to the gym, and the idea is you learn a relationship with food, and you try to learn what your body is capable of. And the first thing you do is go, right, now go do, like, prep for a show isn't healthy. I don't think anyone would really argue that. As you go take as another unhealthy thing and starve your body for a bit until it looks a way to go be subjectively graded. That doesn't sound like a good direction early on. And I'm not saying never do a show. They're awesome. I think that like I respect the sport for what it is, but I don't think it's very safe for people. If you don't feel like you've actually sorted that relationship you have, I don't think it's a good thing to aim for. Again, might be too much.
No. Well, this is people's opinions. I'm not saying this is a follow everything we say show, but I definitely agree with what you say. I love bodybuilding as a sport. I just think the idea of going for a physique goal is a dangerous one. And when was the last time you hear of someone going to the gym? Like nowadays, people don't go just to the gym to be healthy. Like I feel like it used to be like you go to the gym to like look after yourself. Now it's like I don't think I know a single person who does that.
No, literally, I think I could name 3 who I've met in 7 years who I just go along to move better and feel better. I haven't seen anyone else. And like, don't get me wrong, like if you talk elite powerlifting, we don't tend to be healthy but people either. Like we've taken some knocks. I've taken some serious injuries in this sport. But just lifting, I think some people could be reminded, like, you could just move better and look good. And if you have physique goals, like, I know one of the most annoying things is I worked really really hard to look good. And then I found powerlifting and I ate more and now I look the best I ever have. That's really upsetting in a way. Like I didn't even want this and it's happened. That's a bit infuriating. And when I really wanted it, it just made me ill.
I had the exact same thing. I was so obsessed with the way I looked for so long, and it made me always kind of like move in and out of my diets, and it was just because I got so stressed. And then when I finally decided, you know what, from now on, with the way I train and the way I eat is going to be for how I feel. Like when I train, I'm going to do whatever I think is fun, and when I eat, I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to eat whatever it is going to make me feel good. And my like physique, like, you know, it's always subjective, but my physique was better than it's ever been, like by far.
I think most of the time, if you want someone to get towards something like a better goal or somewhere further down the line progress, most of the time you don't need the harshest of parameters to work with. I can give you some loose guidelines of, okay, well, try to hit roughly this split, go have some fun, or try to just simplify your intake, done. And most people get significantly better. But instead, what we're shown and what I have such a hatred for is fitness magazines of every workout you should do, every food you should eat, every calorie you should take in. Like, with love, fuck off. Like, this is people who have never looked at how they ate. They've never been to a gym. And you're going to tell me they need to train 6 days a week for 2 hours and eat only celery. Like what is it? When did this become a thing?
No, no, I agree wholeheartedly. And to be honest with you, I feel like I could speak to you about this forever, because this is very much my kind of realm as well as it is yours. But I feel like we've gone on for enough now. So yeah. we could maybe do one again in the future. But for now we'll stop it. Thank you very much for speaking. Can you just quickly give us kind of social media tags, websites? I will tag everything below the videos and things, but just, yeah.
I mean, basically, so if you want to see my personal stuff, it's just C_J_Barney on Instagram. The team is CJB Strong. The website is cjbstrong.co.uk, and that's basically it. I don't use the rest too much.
Awesome. Thank you very much, mate.
Thanks for having me.
Bye, guys.